The flight touched down in Nadi just as the horizon blushed with shades of pink and orange. I pressed my forehead against the small oval window, letting the tropical colors soak into me like a promise. This was supposed to be the start of forever, the kind of honeymoon girls whisper about in bedrooms, the kind that feels stolen from glossy travel magazines. Paradise. That's what everyone called Fiji. And now it was mine. My husband sat beside me, unreadable. His posture was rigid, shoulders locked, gaze fixed straight ahead as if the plane's descent required his concentration. I nudged his arm lightly, seeking warmth. He smiled, just enough to soften his expression, but not enough to reach his eyes. I told myself it was exhaustion, jet lag, nerves. We had barely slept after the wedding, yet as I watched his silence, something inside me curled with unease. The air outside was humid and sweet, filled with the scent of hibiscus and salt. A cheerful driver held a wooden sign with our names, guiding us to a sleek black car. "Welcome, Mr. and Mrs. Hale. Paradise awaits," he said with a wide grin. I grinned back, clutching my husband's hand, desperate to anchor myself in the fairy tale I'd dreamed of. The ride to the resort was a blur of lush palm forests, turquoise waves licking the coast, and small villages where children waved as though we were royalty. I wanted to talk about everything, the ceremony, the guests, our future. But every time I spoke, he gave only clipped answers. "Are you happy?" I whispered. He glanced at me, lips curving slightly. "Of course. I married you." It was the right answer, but there was something hollow in the way it fell from his mouth. By the time we arrived at the resort, the sun had climbed high, scattering diamonds across the ocean. The villa was more beautiful than I had imagined. Glass walls opening to a private infinity pool. The sea stretching endlessly beyond. White sheets billowed in the breeze like whispered secrets. I twirled barefoot across the polished wooden floor, laughing, arms wide. "This is it. Our dream." He set the luggage down carefully, watching me. "Yes, perfect," he said. His tone was flat, but I ignored it, rushing to the balcony. From there, the view was breathtaking. The reef shimmered in greens and blues, and boats dotted the horizon like forgotten toys. For a fleeting moment, I felt peace. I believed the weight I sensed in him would dissolve in the sun. That night, we dined on the beach. Candles flickered in the sand, casting halos of light that swayed with the breeze. A violinist played softly, the melody threading through the rhythm of waves. I lifted my glass. "To us, to new beginnings." He clinked his glass against mine, the faintest smile tugging his lips. "To beginnings." His eyes lingered on me, steady, almost searching. I felt the air shift, like being watched by a stranger who wore my husband's face. I tried to dismiss it. I laughed too loudly, spoke too quickly, filled every silence with words because silence with him felt sharp. When the meal ended, he walked me back to our villa, his hand resting at the small of my back with practiced tenderness. To any onlooker, we were perfect newlyweds lost in bliss. But as we entered the villa and the door closed, the weight of his silence returned, thicker than the tropical night pressing at the windows. I crawled into bed with hope clutched tightly in my chest, telling myself tomorrow would be lighter, brighter, better. Yet as sleep pulled me under, I could still feel his gaze, calm, steady, and impossible to read. And deep down, though I tried to bury it, a question began to form. Had I stepped into a dream or into a cage disguised as paradise? The morning sun spilled across the villa, bright and merciless. I woke to the sound of waves folding against the reef, the scent of salt heavy in the air. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then I rolled over and saw him. My husband sat upright in bed, already awake, scrolling through his phone. His expression was sharp, mouth drawn tight. "Good morning," I murmured, stretching toward him. He set the phone down without looking at me. "You talk in your sleep," he said. I blinked. "What?" "You said someone's name, James. Who is that?" His voice was calm, but the calmness felt dangerous, as if he had rehearsed it. My stomach tightened. James was the name of a college friend I hadn't thought about in years. "I must have dreamed something. I don't even remember," I stammered. He studied me for a long time, then smiled faintly. "Dreams always reveal the truth." The way he said it left me chilled, though I forced a laugh. Or maybe they're just nonsense. That morning he insisted on planning every hour of our day. "We'll have breakfast at the terrace," he said. "Then snorkeling. Dinner is already arranged." It sounded caring, attentive, but the way he delivered it, firm, unquestionable, left no space for me. When I suggested we linger by the pool first, he shook his head. "You'll burn too easily. Trust me, I know what's best for you." The words nestled like a thorn. It was so small, so easily dismissed, yet it left me silent for the rest of breakfast. The terrace overlooked the ocean, endless blue swallowing the horizon. Tourists laughed, waiters carried trays, and everything shimmered under the sun. I picked at my papaya and yogurt while he spoke about investments, future houses, the kind of life we'd build together. His voice was steady, confident. But the way he framed it, "Always he decides, I follow," made me feel like I was listening to plans for someone else's future. I tried to redirect. "Maybe we could travel more before we settle down. See more of the world together?" His smile froze. He set his fork down with precision. "Traveling is expensive, irresponsible. We need stability. You'll understand soon." There it was again, that subtle correction packaged as wisdom. I nodded, though unease spread inside me like ink in water. By afternoon, we were on a boat headed for the reef. The water glittered, the crew joked in Fijian, and couples held each other against the spray. It should have been perfect. Yet every time I laughed too loudly, or glanced too long at the horizon, I felt his eyes on me, measuring. When we dove into the water, I swam ahead, eager for a moment of freedom beneath the turquoise surface. The coral was alive with color, fish darting like sparks. For the first time since we landed, I felt light. Then his hand clamped around my arm, yanking me back toward him. My mask slipped, water flooding my mouth. I surfaced, coughing. "What are you doing?" "You went too far," he said, voice sharp. "You don't know these waters. Stay close to me. I was fine." I snapped. His expression shifted instantly. The sharpness melted into calm. "I just want to keep you safe." "Don't be so dramatic." Gaslighting, though I didn't have the courage to name it. My anger folded into guilt, and I mumbled, "Okay." Back at the villa that evening, he draped an arm around me, whispering, "See? I take care of you. You don't need to worry." His voice was warm, almost tender. But beneath the tenderness, I sensed the leash tightening. As night fell, I lay awake again, listening to the ocean's rhythm. I thought of his words, his smile, his grip under the water. The cracks were small, almost invisible, but they were there, hidden beneath our perfect honeymoon. And though I tried to silence it, a part of me wondered what else those cracks would reveal. The ocean outside whispered through the night, but inside me another storm raged. His words, "Dreams always reveal the truth," echoed louder than the surf. James, a name I hadn't spoken in years, a name I never thought would matter again. Lying awake, I remembered the pieces of my past I had buried so carefully. James and I had met in college. Late-night library sessions, stolen kisses in the rain, promises that felt eternal at 20. But eternity ended with distance and mistakes. He cheated once, I left, and that was that. Or so I thought. Yet as I stared at the ceiling of our luxurious villa, I realized I had never told my husband about him. Not fully. Perhaps in passing, a half-truth here, a vague story there. I hadn't thought it important. Until now. At breakfast the next morning, he watched me with that same stillness. I tried to break the silence. "The snorkeling yesterday was beautiful, wasn't it?" He sipped his coffee slowly. "Yes, except you forgot to stay close." "You do that often." My fork clinked against the plate. "Do what?" "Forget. Or maybe ignore. Like the things you don't want to talk about." His tone was mild, but the words cut sharp. I forced a smile. "You're reading too much into things." But in his eyes, I saw something unsettled, something gnawing. Later, while he napped in the villa, I wandered outside with my phone. The Wi-Fi was weak, but a call finally connected. My best friend, Anna, back in New York. Her voice was bright. "Finally. I've been dying to hear how paradise is treating you." I tried to match her cheer. "It's beautiful." "Unreal, really?" She laughed. "And married life?" "How's he?" I hesitated. My gaze drifted toward the villa's open doors, curtains swaying like breath. "He's intense. Sometimes too intense." "Intense how?" I lowered my voice. He asked about James, as if I'd been hiding something. "I don't even know how he knew the name." Anna fell silent for a beat. Wait, you never told him? No, I didn't think it mattered. It might matter to him, she said carefully. You know how he can be possessive. You always brushed it off, but careful. Her words chilled me more than the ocean breeze. I ended the call quickly, promising to text later, though my hands trembled as I slipped the phone into my pocket. That evening we walked along the shoreline. The sky bled orange and violet, waves rushing at our feet. It should have been romantic. Instead, it felt like a stage, and we were actors performing for invisible eyes. He reached for my hand. Who were you talking to earlier? Anna, I said softly, his grip tightened. And before that? No one? He stopped walking, turning to face me fully. The sunset painted his expression in shadow and fire. I don't like secrets. I swallowed hard. Neither do I. For a moment I thought he might press further, demand names, demand history. Instead, he released my hand and smiled faintly, as though nothing had been said. Tomorrow we'll hike through the forest. You'll love it. It was always like this. Sharp edges disguised as care, control wrapped in affection. Each moment chipped away at me, leaving hairline cracks across my trust. That night, as I drifted towards sleep, I remembered James's laugh, the weight of his betrayal, and the scars I thought I'd erased. I remembered, too, the way my husband's eyes hardened when he said, "Dreams reveal the truth," and I realized the past wasn't gone at all. It was here with us, hidden in the walls of paradise, waiting to rise again. The forest hike left my legs aching and my chest tight, but it wasn't the climb that drained me. It was him. Every step of the trail, every turn, he dictated the pace, corrected the way I held the water bottle, warned me about where to place my feet as if I were a child. By the time we returned to the villa, the evening heat pressed heavy against my skin, and his voice, endlessly instructing, endlessly right, still rang in my ears. I tossed my sandals near the door, sighing. You don't have to control every single thing. He froze mid-step, his expression sharp. Control? That's what you call keeping you safe? I can take care of myself. His eyes narrowed. Really? Like yesterday when you nearly drowned because you swam too far. That wasn't drowning. You yanked me back like I was a reckless child. He moved closer, his voice low, deliberate. You were reckless. You always are. You don't think before you act. That's why I have to think for you. The words cut, not because of their sharpness, but because of their certainty. I wrapped my arms around myself, staring at the polished floor. That's not fair, he laughed, short, bitter. Fair? Marriage isn't about fair. It's about trust, and clearly you don't trust me. I lifted my gaze. I do trust you, but trust doesn't mean surrendering everything. I'm allowed to have my own choices. He tilted his head, studying me like I was a puzzle he was tired of solving. You're twisting this. I give you everything. Luxury, safety, love. And you call it control? Tell me, what exactly are you giving me back? The accusation lodged in my chest. My love, my loyalty. Isn't that enough? He smiled then, calm, chilling. Loyalty. Funny word, considering the names you whisper in your sleep. The air thinned. You're still on about that? Still? His tone sharpened. You expect me to ignore it? To ignore the fact that even in paradise, even in our marriage bed, you dream of someone else? I don't dream of him. It was nothing. Just a fragment, a ghost from the past. Why can't you believe me? Because lies sound like ghosts too, he said softly, almost tenderly, though his eyes burned. I felt my certainty unraveling piece by piece. Was I lying to myself? Had I buried more than I admitted? He had a way of turning every defense into an accusation, every truth into doubt. Tears pricked at my eyes. I married you. Isn't that proof enough? For a long moment he said nothing. Then he stepped forward, cupping my face gently, his thumbs brushing away tears before they fell. You're overreacting, he whispered. You always overreact. I only want what's best for us. The contradiction stunned me, his tenderness against the sting of his words. I wanted to pull away, but part of me leaned into his touch, desperate for the man I believed I had married. Finally, I whispered, I don't want to fight anymore. He kissed my forehead. Good, neither do I. Silence settled thickly between us, broken only by the hum of the ceiling fan and the distant crash of waves. On the surface, the storm had passed, but inside me, the fracture spread, invisible yet undeniable. That night, we lay side by side in bed. He drifted to sleep quickly, his breathing steady even. I stared at the ceiling, wide-eyed, replaying every word, every twist, every shadow of doubt. Had I imagined it? Was I truly too dramatic, too reckless, too fragile? Or was he carefully erasing me piece by piece under the guise of love? The waves outside grew louder, crashing like warnings against the shore. And I knew the silence between us was only the calm before something far darker. The silence from the night before clung to me like damp air. Even as morning light filtered through the curtains, I felt heavy, brittle, as though one wrong word would shatter everything. He moved around the villa with quiet efficiency, buttoning his shirt, checking his watch, reminding me of the day's plans. I smiled when he looked at me, careful, practiced. If he noticed how my hands trembled when I poured coffee, he said nothing. By afternoon, he wanted to retreat to the room for rest. I couldn't bear the walls closing in again, so I told him I needed air, a short walk to clear my head. He studied me for a moment, then nodded. "Don't be long." The path led me toward the resort's beachside bar, a thatched-roofed hut humming with low music and laughter. Couples lounged in hammocks, children splashed near the shore. It was the kind of place where time softened, where no one looked too closely at anyone else, except the bartender. He noticed me the moment I sat down. A broad-shouldered man with sun-creased skin and kind, sharp eyes. His name tag read, "Jonas, what can I get you?" His voice was warm, carrying an accent shaped by the sea. "Something light," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. He set a glass of pineapple juice with crushed ice before me. "No charge." "You look like you need it." I forced a small smile. "Do I?" He leaned on the counter, studying me without intrusion, just a quiet curiosity. "Couples come here for paradise," he said. "But sometimes paradise reveals things they try to hide." The words stilled me. "What do you mean?" He shrugged, polishing a glass. "I've worked here many years. I see patterns. Some arrive glowing, but by the time they leave, the glow is gone. Not everyone comes here to heal. Some bring their storms with them." A chill slid through me. I wanted to ask if he had seen our storm, if my mask had already slipped. Instead, I laughed too quickly. "We're fine. Just tired from traveling." Jonas didn't push, but his gaze lingered. "Take care of yourself," he said softly. Before I could respond, I felt it, his presence. My husband stood just behind me, his shadow cutting across the sand. "There you are," he said, voice smooth but edged. His eyes flicked to Jonas, then back to me. "I thought you weren't going far," I swallowed. "I just needed a drink." He smiled at the bartender, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Thanks for keeping my wife company." Jonas nodded, unfazed. "Any time." My husband's hand closed around mine, firm, guiding me away from the bar before I could even say goodbye. His grip tightened as we walked, his silence louder than any words. Inside the villa, he released me, pacing once before turning. "Why were you talking to him?" "It was just a drink," I said carefully. "Men don't offer drinks for nothing." "You should know that. He didn't." I stopped, realizing any defense would be twisted. "It was harmless." He stepped closer, his smile returning, brittle and sharp. "You don't need strangers here. You have me. That should be enough." I nodded quickly, though my pulse hammered. He pulled me into his arms, holding me tightly, possessively, as if sealing a claim. But even as I pressed my face into his shoulder, Jonas's words echoed through me. Some bring their storms with them, and for the first time, I wondered if paradise wasn't revealing cracks, but warning me of the flood still to come. Jonas's words haunted me through the night, looping with the sound of waves outside our villa. Some bring their storms with them. My husband's arms were heavy across me as I lay awake, my body tense beneath the weight of his possessive sleep. The next morning, he was all brightness and plans again, his voice brisk as he buttoned his shirt. "Today, snorkeling. The reefs here are unmatched. We'll go together." I hesitated. "Maybe I'll just stay by the pool." He turned sharply. "No, you'll come. We didn't come all this way for you to hide in the villa." The finality in his tone left no room for refusal. I forced a smile, pretending to be eager. By midday, we stood on the dock as the resort's catamaran bobbed gently on the waves. Other tourists bustled with gear, laughing, adjusting masks, chatting with the guides. The air smelled of salt and sunscreen, festive and light. But inside me, dread knotted tight. On board, he wrapped an arm around my waist, his smile for the others polished and convincing. To them, he looked like the perfect doting husband. Only I felt the steel in his grip. When we finally slid into the water, the reef below exploded with color. Schools of fish flashing like silver blades, coral blooming like frozen fire. For a few moments, I lost myself in the beauty. The water was freedom, vast and glittering, muffling everything else. I swam ahead, chasing the shimmer of parrotfish weaving through the coral. The further I drifted, the lighter I felt, as though distance itself could loosen his hold on me. Then a hand clamped around my ankle, yanking me back. Panic flared as I twisted, swallowing seawater. My husband's face loomed behind his mask, eyes hard. He tugged me closer, shaking his head violently. We surfaced together, waves slapping against us. "What the hell are you doing?" gasped. "You went too far." His voice was low, sharp, meant only for me, though others floated nearby. "Stay with me. Always with me. I was fine." My voice rose before I could stop it, carrying over the water. A few nearby snorkelers turned their heads, curiosity flickering. His expression flickered, anger flashing, then smoothing into charm. "She gets nervous," he called lightly to the others. First time in the reef, laughter rippled among the tourists, the tension dissolving for them. But under the water, his hand dug into my arm, leaving crescents of pain. Back on the boat, I kept my distance, wrapping myself in a towel, shivering though the sun burned hot. He sat close, smiling, chatting easily with strangers as if nothing had happened. To them, he was confident, protective, even charming. To me, he was a storm wearing borrowed light. That night, the air in the villa was thick. He showered, humming under his breath while I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my reflection in the glass wall. My skin still bore faint red marks where his fingers had gripped me. When he stepped out, he kissed the top of my head. "I just want to keep you safe," he said softly. "You'll thank me one day." I nodded, too tired to argue. He poured himself a drink and retreated to the balcony, leaving his suitcase half unzipped on the floor. It was small, careless, but enough. My chest tightened as I glanced at it. Curiosity or desperation pulled me forward. My fingers trembled as I slid the zipper open. Beneath clothes neatly folded, I found a folder, plain, unmarked. Inside, papers rustled. My eyes skimmed across them and ice filled my veins. Insurance documents. Policies with my name, signatures I didn't remember giving. Dates that predated our wedding by weeks. And beneath those, printouts, emails, correspondence detailing reservations, payments, everything about this honeymoon. Every step planned not as romance, but as logistics. Calculated. Cold. I shoved the papers back, heart racing, zipping the suitcase closed before he could return. My hands shook so violently I had to press them against my thighs to steady them. Through the glass, I saw him on the balcony, bathed in moonlight, sipping his drink calmly, his silhouette sharp against the horizon. To anyone else, he was the image of a man in love, savoring paradise. But I knew now. The storm Jonas warned me of wasn't coming. It was already here, and it had been planned long before we ever set foot in Fiji. The documents burned in my memory all night, though I tucked them away before he noticed. By morning, exhaustion clung to me like a second skin. He brewed coffee on the villa's small machine, humming tunelessly. His movements practiced, casual. To anyone else, it might have seemed an ordinary honeymoon morning. To me, it felt like standing in the eye of a storm. When he handed me a cup, I couldn't bring myself to drink. The silence stretched, thick and unnatural, until I blurted, "Why do you have those papers?" His head turned slowly. "What papers?" "You know what I mean." My voice cracked despite my effort to hold steady. "The insurance forms. The bookings, the signatures." His smile froze, then slipped. A long pause. Finally, he set his coffee down with deliberate care. "You went through my things. I had to. You've been hiding things from me. Planning things. Things that make no sense." My breath came fast. What kind of husband keeps policies on his wife before the wedding? His laugh was sharp, humorless. "Do you even hear yourself? You sound paranoid." "I'm not paranoid." My hands trembled against my lap. "You're lying to me." He rose, pacing across the room, his steps measured like a predator circling. "Everything I do is for us, for you. And you," he stopped, his eyes dark as thunderclouds. "You betray me with suspicion, after everything I've given you." I stood, my legs unsteady. "Betray you? I married you. I trusted you. But you trusted me." His voice rose, cracking the calm. "Then why do you look at me like I'm the enemy? Why do you talk to strangers behind my back?" Jonas at the bar. "Don't think I didn't notice the way you smiled at him." My stomach dropped. "He was just being kind." "Kind," he sneered. "That's what you call it? Whispering to him like I don't exist? Making me look like a fool in front of everyone? I never— Liar." His shout shook the walls. He slammed his fist against the table, the sound splitting the air. My heart jumped into my throat. I forced words past my panic. "You're twisting this. You control everything I do, where I go, who I speak to. And when I try to breathe, you make me feel like I'm wrong. That's because you are wrong." His face flushed red, veins rising along his neck. "You don't know what's out there, what men like Jonas want. I'm the only one protecting you." "Protecting me?" My voice cracked, raw with anger and fear. "Is that what you call it? Dragging me in the water, bruising my arm, spying on me, making me doubt my own mind?" For a flicker of a moment he faltered. Then his tone softened, insidious. "I didn't hurt you. You're remembering it wrong. You exaggerate everything. I only held your arm to keep you safe." "That's love." "No," I whispered, shaking my head. "That's not love." The room trembled with silence. Then his mask shattered. He lunged forward, gripping my wrist so tightly I cried out. "Don't you dare say that. Don't you dare reduce what I've sacrificed for you. Let me go." Tears blurred my vision, but I wrenched against his hold. "You're scaring me." His eyes bore into mine, wild and desperate. "Good, maybe fear will keep you loyal. Maybe fear will remind you who owns your heart." "I'm not yours to own," I spat through sobs. The words hit like a strike. His hand trembled, his jaw tightening, every muscle coiled as though on the edge of violence. Then, abruptly, he released me, stepping back, chest heaving. We stood in the wreckage of words, the air poisoned with rage and heartbreak. My wrist throbbed, my chest ached, my mind reeled. I wanted to scream, to run, to disappear into the sea itself. He turned away, slamming his fist once more into the wall. "You'll ruin us," he said hoarsely. "You'll ruin everything." I clutched my wrist, silent tears streaming, knowing something fragile had finally cracked beyond repair. The villa no longer felt like a sanctuary but a cage, and his shadow loomed larger than ever. Outside, the storm that had threatened for days began to gather for real. Clouds thickening, winds shifting, the sea darkening in the distance. Inside, our storm had already broken. The storm broke just as the night fell. Rain lashed against the villa's glass doors. The palm trees bent low, and thunder rolled like a warning too late to heed. Inside, the air was stifling, heavy with everything left unsaid. My wrist still throbbed where his fingers had left their mark. He sat by the table, methodically folding papers, his calmness more frightening than his rage. "Storms come and go," he murmured, as if speaking to himself. "It's how people survive them that matters." I didn't answer. My heart hammered with a single, desperate truth. I had to leave. While he disappeared into the bathroom, I slipped on sandals, grabbed the key card, and pulled my thin raincoat over trembling arms. The wind fought me as I pushed the door open, the rain instantly soaking my hair and skin. But the taste of freedom was enough. I ran. The path twisted between palm trees and torches half extinguished by the downpour. My lungs burned with every step. Behind me, the villa's door slammed. His voice cut through the storm. "Anna!" I pushed harder, the gravel biting into my feet as I veered toward the beach. The sand clung, dragging at me, but the roar of the ocean called louder than his footsteps. If I could just reach the shoreline, blend into the blur of storm and sea, maybe, just maybe, I could vanish. But he was faster. His hand closed around my arm, jerking me backward. I screamed, the sound swallowed by the thunder. "Let me go!" He pulled me close, his face inches from mine, rain streaming between us like glass. His eyes were calm now, terrifyingly calm. "Running, after everything we've built?" "You're going to kill me." The words tore from me, raw and certain. He tilted his head, almost curious. "Not if you just listen." Not if you stay. I wrenched free and stumbled into the waves, the ocean surging around my knees. Salt stung my lips as I gasped, fighting against the pull of tide and terror. I thought if I went far enough, he wouldn't follow. But he did. He moved through the surf with relentless precision, like a shadow given form. His hands found me again, dragging me under the spray. My arms flailed, striking his chest, his face, but he absorbed every blow with chilling patience. "This is your fault," he said softly, almost tenderly, as his grip tightened around my throat. The world narrowed. Rain, waves, the crushing strength of his hands. I clawed at him, nails raking skin, but he didn't falter. My vision blurred, stars bursting at the edges, the storm's roar fading into silence. Some part of me broke free inside, screaming into the void even as my body betrayed me. Memories flickered. My mother's laugh, sunlight through curtains, the taste of coffee on our first morning together before the lies began. They slipped through my mind like water, impossible to hold. I tried to speak, to beg, but no sound came. His face hovered above mine, serene as though he were carrying out a duty, not a crime. And then darkness. Time dissolved. Whether seconds or hours passed, I could not tell. The storm still raged, but distant now, as if the world had moved on without me. My body lay still, surrendered to the tide. My voice was gone, silenced in the place we had come to celebrate love. He stood above me, chest heaving, the rain washing blood from the scratches on his skin. He looked down, but not with remorse, only relief. "Now it's quiet," he whispered. The waves lapped at my motionless frame, carrying foam over my face, pulling me inch by inch into their embrace. Somewhere the bartender's warning echoed in memory. Some bring their storms with them. Paradise had never been mine. With deliberate steps, he lifted me fully into the water, letting the sea claim what he no longer wanted. The storm swallowed me whole, and the last trace of my presence dissolved into silence. For him, the act was finished. For me, it was the end. But the island, with its witnesses of wind and wave, had just begun to whisper the truth. The storm cleared just before sunrise, leaving the island washed in eerie stillness. The sea, restless hours before, now spread glassy and calm, as though nothing had happened. But along the shoreline, half buried in sand and foam, the first traces of tragedy appeared. It was a housekeeper who noticed. She had risen early to sweep the resort's pathways, humming softly as the sun broke the horizon. Her broom stilled when she saw footprints stamped into the wet sand, erratic, desperate, leading down to the tide. A few yards further, she found a torn strap from a raincoat, half drowned by the waves. Her humming stopped. Within the hour, staff swarmed the beach, whispering, pointing. A scene had formed. Disturbed sand, scattered belongings. The unmistakable shape of struggle etched into paradise. And then there was him. He emerged from the villa with remarkable composure, hair damp, clothes pressed, eyes sharp with practiced concern. When the resort manager approached, he offered the story before anyone asked. "My wife went for a walk last night," he said smoothly. "She was restless, couldn't sleep. When she didn't come back, I assumed she needed time. Now," he gestured toward the beach, sighing heavily. "Now I'm terrified something's happened." The manager frowned, unsettled by his tone. Not grief-stricken, not frantic, just precise. Guests began to murmur, their voices carried by the morning breeze. A woman in a floral robe whispered to her husband, "Look at him, so calm." "Too calm." Another guest shook his head, muttering, "I saw them arguing yesterday. It was ugly." The whispers spread faster than the tide. By mid-morning, the police arrived. 2 Fijian detectives, seasoned by years of island tragedies that tourists preferred to forget. Detective Ratu was tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes that missed nothing. His partner, Detective Lysa, carried a notebook already half filled with observations. They greeted the husband politely, but their questions came pointed, layered with quiet suspicion. "When did you last see your wife?" Ratu asked. "Just after midnight," the husband replied, his voice even. "She wanted to walk by the shore. I didn't stop her. I regret that now. And you didn't follow?" "I respected her need for space," Detective Lysa scribbled quickly. "You argue yesterday?" He hesitated only a fraction. "Like all couples, we had disagreements, but nothing serious." The detectives exchanged a glance, noting the bruises faintly visible on his wrist. The scratches near his jawline. Guests gathered at a distance, pretending not to stare while watching every flicker of expression on his face. They remembered the raised voices from the villa, the tension at dinner, the way she flinched when he touched her shoulder. "Please," the husband said at last, pressing a hand to his chest with calculated sorrow. "Just find her. That's all I ask." But the tide had already spoken its truth. By noon, fishermen spotted something adrift beyond the reef. A rescue boat was sent, and the discovery brought silence across the island. The body was carried back under a sheet, the pale outline unmistakable even beneath fabric. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some wept. Others stared at the husband, waiting for his collapse. It never came. He stood tall, his jaw clenched, his eyes dry. His words, when they came, were measured. "My wife," he whispered as though rehearsing grief. "Oh, my wife." Detective Ratu studied him carefully, noting every controlled syllable. A man who had just lost the love of his life should be shattered. But this man was performing, and beneath the beauty of Fiji's paradise, the investigation had begun. Detective Ratu believed in patience. Truth, he often said, was like the tide. Sooner or later it revealed what was buried. And as the sun climbed high over the island, the tide began to turn against the grieving husband. The interrogation began in a small office near the resort lobby, the air heavy with sea salt and suspicion. He sat stiffly in the chair, hands folded neatly, posture too perfect for a man who had just identified his wife's body. "We need to understand your wife," Ratu said gently, recorder clicking on. "Her state of mind, her habits, anything unusual." "She was happy," the husband replied smoothly. "Thrilled to be here. If anything, she seemed distracted, maybe tired. That's all." Detective Lesa leaned forward. "And you? You have no stress, no reason for conflict?" His lips tightened. "Every couple argues, but we loved each other." It might have sounded convincing if not for the witnesses. Jonas, the bartender, was first to speak. Called into the office, he kept his eyes steady, his voice calm. "She came to the bar the other day. She was shaken, said little, but I could see fear in her. And when he arrived," Jonas's gaze flicked toward the husband. "The way she froze told me everything." The husband scoffed. "You misunderstand. She was shy, that's all, but Jonas wasn't the only one." The housekeeper confirmed hearing raised voices through the villa's walls, the thud of fists against furniture. Another guest recalled seeing the wife clutch her wrist, red marks visible beneath the sleeve. Each testimony layered suspicion thicker than the humid island air. Detective Ratu shifted the conversation. "We've also reviewed your financials." That was when the mask cracked. He stiffened. "My financials?" "Yes," Ratu continued evenly. "We contacted your bank in the States. Your wife was unaware of several large withdrawals before the wedding, and the life insurance policy, signed just weeks before your trip, names you as the sole beneficiary." Silence stretched. The husband's jaw worked, but no words came. "It's standard," he said at last, voice sharp. "A precaution. Plenty of newlyweds do it, perhaps," Ratu allowed. "But not all take out a policy worth $500,000. Not all do it without their spouse's knowledge." The room darkened with implication. Detective Lesa slid a photograph across the table. "And this?" He looked down. The image showed him arm in arm with another woman in Los Angeles, the shot captured by a private investigator weeks earlier. Her smile pressed against his cheek, intimate, undeniable. His composure faltered. "That's nothing. A friend." "Not according to her," Lesa replied coolly. "She described herself as your partner. She believed your marriage was a formality, that the money would set you both free." The husband's silence was louder than denial. His hands twitched on the table, as though he wanted to ball them into fists but knew it would betray too much. "Your wife was not blind," Ratu said quietly. "She sensed you hiding something. She told others. She feared you." At that, his eyes flashed. For a moment, the calm, grieving mask dissolved, and the storm within him showed itself again. Rage, defensiveness, the raw edge of a man cornered. "You think you know us?" His voice rose bitter. "You don't. She was mine. She made vows, and when she tried to run, she destroyed them. I couldn't." He stopped, realizing too late how much had slipped. Detective Ratu leaned forward, unblinking. "Couldn't what?" The room pulsed with silence. He lowered his gaze, the weight of evidence pressing down like the tide itself. For the first time since dawn, the husband looked less like a widower and more like what the island already believed him to be, a killer. And as the detectives closed their files, the facade of paradise and of the grieving man crumbled to dust. The trial began months later, but the weight of paradise never left the courtroom. Photographs of Fiji, the white sands, turquoise waters, swaying palms, were displayed on the prosecution's screen, each one a cruel reminder of what was supposed to be a honeymoon. Instead, it had become evidence of betrayal, greed, and murder. The husband sat at the defense table, shackled only by the law, not the composure he wore like armor. He kept his suit crisp, his posture upright, his expression molded into quiet sorrow. To the jury, he wanted to appear the picture of a grieving man wrongly accused. But every so often, when the prosecutors spoke her name, his jaw tightened, and the mask slipped just enough to reveal the storm beneath. Witness after witness testified. The bartender, Jonas, described her trembling hands, her forced smile, and the way her husband's presence made the air tighten around her. The housekeeper recounted raised voices, thuds against the wall, and the sight of bruises half hidden beneath sleeves. A guest swore he had seen her running into the waves before being pulled back by a shadow he recognized as the defendant. Then came the documents, the life insurance policy, the forged signatures, the financial records showing debts back home, the photographs of him with another woman, intimate and carefree, shattered what little remained of his mask. The prosecution painted him not as a grieving husband, but as a man who had come to paradise with a single plan, to profit from his wife's death. The defense tried to counter. They argued stress, culture shock, even the chaos of the storm. They suggested she was unstable, reckless, prone to wandering into danger. But each excuse collapsed under the weight of testimony, evidence, and his own slip of the tongue during questioning in Fiji. She was mine. When she tried to run, she destroyed it. Those words echoed in the courtroom like a confession. The jury deliberated only a day. When they returned, the verdict was unanimous. Guilty of first-degree murder. The sentence was life imprisonment. As the judge spoke, his face remained eerily calm. But his hands betrayed him, twitching against the cuffs, fingers curling like claws searching for control. For the first time, the chains mattered. They weren't symbolic anymore. They were real, unbreakable, final. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Headlines bloomed across the world. Murder in paradise. Honeymoon turns to horror. Husband convicted of killing bride in Fiji. The story became a spectacle, consumed by millions who saw it as both tragedy and entertainment. But for those who had known her, the friends back home, the parents who wept in silence in the gallery, the staff at the resort who had watched her fade day by day, there was no spectacle. There was only grief. In the end, justice was delivered, but it did not restore what was lost. The betrayal remained, a shadow carved into every memory of her smile. Love had been promised, vows had been spoken, but what she received was control, fear, and silence. Paradise had not saved her. It had become her grave. The prosecutor closed his final statement with words that lingered long after the gavel fell. Marriage is built on trust. When trust becomes manipulation, when love becomes ownership, it is not marriage. It is a prison, and in this case it became a death sentence. The husband was led away in chains, his head bowed, the illusion finally stripped away. He would spend the rest of his life behind bars, but no sentence could balance the cost. For her, there was no second chance. For her, justice came too late, and so the story ended where it began, in paradise. But now paradise was not a dream. It was a warning, a reminder of the price of secrets, the cost of betrayal, and the truth that love, when twisted, can kill. In the silence of the courtroom, the echo of that truth remained forever.